I feel very lucky, at this age, you do start to slow down, whether you retire or not.
Henry Fonda's reality was far more complicated than the roles that made him famous. Behind the silver screen lay a series of deep personal struggles. He carried the weight of 5 marriages, a web of heartbreaks, and a complicated relationship with his 3 children. His story ended sadly, though his legacy still stands as a reflection of his past glory. Join us as we uncover shocking details of Fonda's legendary life and career and his net worth at the time of his passing. Henry Fonda's abandoned house. Henry Fonda spent his early years growing up in a modest house in Grand Island, Nebraska. The house was not grand in any way, but it had a simple and honest charm. It was a 1-story wooden house, painted a soft green, with a small front porch that gently overlooked the peaceful streets of the neighborhood. Like many other homes in small Midwestern towns during that time, it was built plainly and without much decoration. Still, it felt warm and welcoming. The Fondas lived a modest life, and their house naturally reflected that way of living. There was nothing flashy about it, but it provided comfort and a sense of security that made it truly feel like home. Years later, this house was carefully preserved and given a place of honor at the Stour Museum of the Prairie Pioneer in Grand Island. The museum, fully dedicated to telling the story of Nebraska's early settlers, took great care in moving the Fonda family home to its new location in 1966. Now part of the Railroad Town exhibit, the house has been restored thoughtfully to look just as it did when the Fonda family lived there. Even Henry Fonda himself visited the museum in 1978 to see the home lovingly brought back to life. Inside, visitors can still see the rooms furnished as they once were, along with an introductory slideshow where Fonda fondly shared his early memories, making the experience feel almost like stepping back in time. As Henry Fonda's career grew and his success in Hollywood became firmly established, he gradually built an impressive collection of properties. One of his most remarkable homes was a grand 6-story townhouse located at 151 East 74th Street in New York City. Originally constructed in 1878, the house carried a sense of timeless elegance. Fonda purchased this impressive townhouse in 1949, and it became a very special place in his life. It was within those walls, years later, in 1957, that he celebrated his wedding to Italian Baroness Afdera Franchetti. The house stood proudly, showcasing its colonial revival-style limestone and brick facade, which has been beautifully preserved over the years. In 2011, the townhouse was officially recognized with landmark status, ensuring that its architectural beauty and historical significance would be carefully protected. Fonda also enjoyed life on the West Coast, where he owned a lovely home in the prestigious Bel Air neighborhood of Los Angeles. This house was designed tastefully, blending traditional American style with clean, minimalist touches. It offered 6 spacious bedrooms, a quiet library, a dedicated piano room that filled the space with music, and a serene private garden that provided moments of peace away from the busy world of film and fame. For relaxation, Fonda often escaped to his Malibu beach house, a deeply personal retreat perched right along the coast. The house featured sweeping views of the Pacific Ocean, and its warm wooden interiors created a cozy atmosphere that felt like a true hideaway. This cherished home remained in the Fonda family for years, becoming a beloved getaway spot for both his daughter Jane and his son Peter, allowing them to enjoy the same peaceful surroundings their father had once loved so much. 5 wives. Henry Fonda's personal life was like a long and complicated drama, filled with twists that never seemed to stop. His relationships were often as tangled and intense as the stories he brought to life on the big screen. His journey through love and marriage began early, when he crossed paths with Margaret Sullivan at a summer stock theater in Massachusetts. Their connection deepened over time, and some years later in 1931, they became husband and wife. However, their happiness did not last long. Margaret, a talented stage and screen actress who earned an Oscar nomination for her role in 3 Comrades in 1938, was known for her fiery personality and sharp temper. She never held back, and tensions between her and Fonda grew rapidly. There is a story about an argument between them on a set, which was recorded in a book by Lawrence J. Quick, titled Margaret Sullivan, Child of Fate. During that moment, she suddenly grabbed a pitcher of water and poured it over Fonda. Without making a scene, she sat back down calmly, while Fonda had no choice but to leave and change his soaked clothes. Their marriage, as fiery as it was brief, ended in separation after only 2 months, and a formal divorce followed in 1933. Strangely enough, even after parting ways, they remained friendly. A few years later, in 1936, they even worked together again in the moon's Our Home, showing that some ties, no matter how strained, managed to survive. Soon after, in 1935, Fonda's attention shifted to Shirley Ross, a famous actress and singer at the time. Their romance grew quickly, filling the gossip columns with exciting headlines. Many believed they were on the brink of marriage, as even well-known reporters at the time wrote about their supposed engagement. But quietly, without much noise, things began to fall apart between them. By the start of 1936, Fonda's heart had moved on once again, this time to another actress, Virginia Bruce. That same year, Fonda married Frances Ford Seymour Brokaw, a wealthy widow who had been previously married to an industrialist named George Tuttle Brokaw. Frances had a young daughter from that earlier marriage. Fonda and Frances met far from home in England while working at Denham Studios on the film Wings of the Morning. This movie held special importance, as it was the first film made in Europe using 3-strip Technicolor, which was a major breakthrough at the time. Together, Fonda and Frances built a family, welcoming 2 children into their lives. But despite the happy appearances, their home life carried its share of troubles. During World War II, Fonda joined the United States Navy and served for 3 years, even earning the Bronze Star Medal for his bravery. His time away from home, combined with the demands of his acting career, kept him distant from Frances and their children. But beyond the physical distance, there were deeper problems in their marriage. In August 1949, after over a decade together, Fonda told Frances that he wanted a divorce. The reason behind his decision was shocking. He had been involved with a much younger woman, only 20 years old, and wished to marry her. Frances, who had battled emotional struggles for many years, felt completely devastated. In early 1950, she checked herself into Craig House Sanitarium, hoping to find some relief from her growing despair. Sadly, things took a tragic turn just a few months later. Frances ended her life using a razor she had stolen. She left behind letters for close friends and family, but none for Fonda himself. He chose not to speak of her demise to their children, keeping the truth hidden from them for many years. Her funeral was a small, quiet event, attended only by Fonda and her mother, Sophie Seymour. Long after her passing, one of Frances's psychiatrists described Fonda as someone completely absorbed in his own world, cold and distant, unable to offer the emotional warmth Frances had so badly needed. Not long after this painful chapter, Fonda married again. His new bride was Susan Blanchard, a young woman from an influential family. Her mother was the well-known interior designer Dorothy Hammerstein, and her stepfather was the legendary Oscar Hammerstein II. Together, Fonda and Susan adopted a daughter in 1953. Although they tried to build a new life together, their marriage did not last long. Within 3 years, it had ended in divorce. Susan later explained that she had dedicated herself completely to Fonda, doing everything she could to please him, yet he remained emotionally closed off. Meanwhile, Fonda did not remain single for long. In 1957, he married Aftora Franchetti, an Italian baroness introduced to him by Audrey Hepburn while filming War and Peace in Italy. Despite the charm and excitement of their early days together, their marriage too fell apart, ending in divorce by 1961. Still, Fonda did not give up on the idea of lasting love. In 1965, he married Shirley May Adams. This time, the relationship held long. Shirley stayed by his side for the rest of his life, and they remained together until Fonda's passing in 1982. Through all the highs and lows, twists and heartbreaks, Fonda's journey through love was as complex and captivating as any story he ever brought to life on screen. Henry Fonda's 3 children. Henry Fonda had 3 children in total, a son and 2 daughters, one of which was adopted. His first child, Jane Fonda, was born on December 21, 1937. From early on, Jane seemed destined to follow in her famous father's footsteps. She stepped into acting in the early 60s, quickly winning the hearts of Broadway audiences with performances in plays like There Was a Little Girl and Invitation to a March. Jane became much more than just an actress, though. She worked hard to build a name of her own, far beyond her father's shadow. Over the years, she not only starred in countless films, including the beloved 9 to 5, but she also wrote several memoirs, sharing her life story in her own words. She spent much of her life deeply involved in political activism, always standing up for causes she believed in. However, Jane's personal life has been full of its own twists, as she has been married 3 times. Her first marriage was to Roger Vadim, a filmmaker, and they were together from 1965 until 1973. During their marriage, they welcomed a daughter, Vanessa Vadim, in 1968. After her marriage to Vadim ended, Jane married Tom Hayden in 1973. With Tom, she had a son, Troy Garrity, who was born the same year they married. They also chose to expand their family by adopting a daughter, Mary Luana Williams. They divorced in 1990, and the next year Jane married Ted Turner. Henry's second child was Peter Fonda, born on February 23, 1940. Like Jane, Peter also pursued acting, starting his career in the 60s. He appeared in films like Tammy and the Doctor and The Victors, but it was in 1969 that his career truly soared. That year, Peter starred in Easy Rider, a movie he didn't just act in, but also wrote and produced. The film was a major hit, earning him an Academy Award nomination and placing him firmly on the map as not just an actor, but a creative force in Hollywood. Peter's personal life was eventful as well. He was married 3 times, and with his first wife, Susan Brewer, he had 2 children. Their daughter, Bridget Fonda, followed the family tradition and became a talented actress herself, while their son, Justin Fonda, built a career behind the scenes as a camera assistant, quietly contributing to the film industry in his own way. Henry's third child, Amy Fishman, was adopted and born in 1953. Unlike Jane and Peter, Amy chose to live a life far away from the public eye. She has kept her personal life very private, and little is known about her journey, as she never sought the spotlight like her siblings did. When it came to Henry Fonda's relationship with his children, things were never simple. Much like his complicated marriages, Henry kept his feelings tightly guarded. He rarely showed affection and kept his emotions under lock and key. This emotional distance left a heavy mark on his children, especially Jane and Peter.
Things that are still in the legend. And so
They often found themselves wondering how their father truly felt about them. For Peter, it was a lifelong puzzle, one that he didn't fully understand until much later. It was only in his adult years that he finally heard the words he had been longing for from his father. Jane, too, carried the weight of her father's cold distance. When she was just starting out in her acting career, she visited her father in Malibu in 1958. During that visit, she crossed paths with acting coach Lee Strasberg, whose teachings about method acting sparked something powerful inside her. She threw herself into the training, determined to make her own way and prove herself beyond being just Henry Fonda's daughter. As time went on, Jane tried to mend the complicated bond with her father. She expressed her regrets, wishing she had been a better daughter at times, and forgave him for the moments he fell short as a father. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Henry Fonda let his emotions surface. He began to cry, something he almost never did, especially in front of others. It was a deeply moving moment, and Jane could tell her words had finally reached him. In the final months of Henry's life, Jane noticed a change in him. She believed much of this transformation came from his relationship with Shirley, his last wife. Jane felt that Shirley brought out a gentler, more affectionate side of her father, a side she wished she had seen much earlier. She saw them together and realized they were both simple, modest people at heart, which seemed to connect them deeply. Sadly, Jane's brother Peter passed away in August 2019 at the age of 79 from respiratory failure caused by lung cancer complications. Jane shared her sorrow, remembering him not just as her brother, but as the family's big-hearted and talkative soul. Even in grief, she held on to the warm memories of the brother she loved so dearly. Final years and death. As the years went by and Henry Fonda's health began to decline, he found himself taking longer breaks between acting roles. During this time, people began to look back at his long and impressive career with newfound respect. Critics now recognize the value and impact of what he had given to film and theater. In 1979, he was honored with the Golden Plate Award by the American Academy of Achievement, a moment made even more special as the award was handed to him by his old friend and fellow actor, Jimmy Stewart. That same year, his contributions to Broadway were celebrated when he was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame. The accolades didn't stop there. The Kennedy Center also recognized his lifetime of achievement, placing him among the most respected artists in the country. The following years continued to bring well-deserved recognition, with the Golden Globes and the Academy Awards both granting him lifetime achievement honors in 1980 and 1981. Even as his health weakened, Fonda's passion for acting never faded. He continued working into the early 1980s, though most of his projects in those final years were made for television. Among them was a live performance of Preston Jones's play, The Oldest Living Graduate, and the powerful television film, Gideon's Trumpet. In the latter, Fonda starred alongside the legendary Fay Wray in what would be her final performance. His work in television showed his commitment to storytelling, even when his energy was waning. But it was On Golden Pond, released in 1981, that would stand as the crowning moment of his career and personal life. This film, adapted from Ernest Thompson's play and directed by Mark Rydell, became a deeply emotional project for Fonda. It gave him the rare opportunity to work with his daughter, which meant so much to him. In the film, he portrayed an aging father who had grown distant from his family, but slowly began to open his heart as his life neared its end. Off-screen, the story seemed to reflect real moments between Fonda and his daughter, as she had long wished to bridge the emotional gap between them. She had acquired the rights to the play herself, dreaming of casting her father in the role. Jane later described the film as a gift to him.
What a gift for a daughter who's had a difficult relationship with her father.
One that turned out to be more successful than she could have ever imagined. When On Golden Pond premiered in December 1981, it captured the hearts of audiences and critics alike, leading to a wide release early the next year. What started as a quiet release soon gained momentum, leading to a wide release in early 1982. The film's success exceeded expectations, pulling in nearly $120 million at the box office and earning 10 Academy Award nominations. It took home Oscars for Best Actress, Hepburn, and Best Adapted Screenplay, but the most memorable win was Henry Fonda's first and only Oscar for Best Actor. He was, at that time, the oldest person ever to receive the award. Sadly, his health kept him from attending the ceremony. His daughter accepted the award on his behalf, sharing with the audience her father's trademark dry humor, imagining him saying he felt like the luckiest man alive. Critics and fans would later remember his performance as a raw, honest portrayal of the fears and fragility that come with old age. Fonda's final role came in the television drama Summer Solstice, filmed after On Golden Pond. He starred alongside Myrna Loy in what would be his last performance before his health rapidly declined. On August 12, 1982, Henry Fonda passed away at his home in Los Angeles, surrounded by his wife and 2 children. Though he had been battling prostate cancer, his passing was due to heart disease. True to his humble nature, Fonda had requested there be no funeral. His body was cremated. Even after his passing, Fonda's legacy continued to grow. President Ronald Reagan, himself a former actor, praised Fonda for his dedication to his craft, describing him as a sincere and skilled performer who had left an unforgettable mark on cinema. His birthplace in Grand Island, Nebraska, was preserved at the Stour Museum of the Prairie Pioneer. In 2005, to mark the 100th anniversary of his birth, Turner Classic Movies honored him with a marathon of his greatest films. That same year, the United States Postal Service issued a commemorative stamp bearing his image, celebrating him as part of their Hollywood Legends series. The Fonda Theater in Hollywood, renamed in his honor in 1985, remains a lasting tribute to the man whose work touched generations. His legacy endures, not just in awards or memorials, but in the hearts of those who continue to be moved by his unforgettable performances. New Earth and Properties. Beyond the challenges he faced in his personal life, Henry Fonda managed to build an impressive fortune throughout his long and successful career. His steady presence in Hollywood, combined with the powerful draw he had at the box office, kept him in constant demand. Movie after movie, he delivered performances that not only pleased critics, but also filled theaters, which meant he could command very large paychecks. By the time the late 1950s arrived, Fonda was earning at least $250,000 for every film he worked on, an amount that feels even more incredible when you think about how much that would be worth today. He didn't stop at acting, though. He also stepped into the role of producer for some projects, which allowed him to take a share of the profits from the film's earnings, adding even more to his growing wealth. When he passed away, Fonda's net worth was estimated to be somewhere around $20 million, a huge sum for that time. A large part of this wealth came from smart investments in real estate. His main residence in Bel Air was nothing short of impressive. In the early 1980s, this Bel Air property alone was worth over $3 million, which would easily be around $9 million today. But that was not the only property in his name. Fonda also owned 2 vacation homes that added even more value to his estate. One of them was in Sun Valley, Idaho, a place he loved visiting during the summers with his children. The other was in the Hamptons, a smart purchase that he made even wiser by renting it out whenever he wasn't staying there himself. These properties steadily increased in value over the years, quietly boosting his overall fortune as time went on. Fonda's interests extended far beyond homes and movies. He had a true passion for classic cars, and he kept an impressive collection of them. Among his prized vehicles were a sleek and stylish 1956 Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing, a gorgeous 1963 Jaguar E-Type, and an elegant 1972 Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow. These cars were not just for show. They were properly cared for, maintained in excellent condition, and even personalized to suit his taste. The Gullwing alone was already valued at about $100,000 back in 1982, which was an enormous amount for a single car at the time. When his collection eventually went to auction, it sold for nearly $500,000, a clear sign of how carefully he had chosen and maintained his vehicles. His love for fine things also included luxury watches. Fonda owned a beautiful collection of timepieces, featuring rare and valuable brands such as Patek Philippe, Rolex, and Cartier. These watches were safely stored in a custom-made oak cabinet inside his Bel Air estate, keeping them secure yet close at hand. The collection as a whole was valued at around $300,000. One of his Patek Philippe watches alone later sold for an impressive $90,000 during an auction held after his passing. When Fonda's life came to an end, he had made sure that his estate was well organized and thoughtfully planned. Part of his wealth was left to his children, Jane and Peter, who were both following in his footsteps as actors. Jane received a trust fund worth over $3 million, along with rights to some of his most famous films, including profits from movies like On Golden Pond and The Grapes of Wrath. Peter inherited some of the family's real estate and a smaller portion of the financial investments. He also ensured that his grandchildren were not forgotten, placing some of the income from his lesser-known projects into a trust that would benefit them in the years to come. Fonda's fifth wife, Shirley Mae Adams, was also remembered in his will. She received a generous portion of his estate, including $1.5 million in cash and jewelry, as well as the right to live at the Bel Air home for the rest of her life. In addition to these, she continued to receive income from his ongoing film and television earnings, giving her financial security long after his death. In a quieter but meaningful gesture, Fonda also made plans to support educational programs in his home state of Nebraska. Through a private foundation he had set up, scholarships and arts funding were provided to help students in creative projects, keeping his name alive in a way that truly mattered. Though he was never someone to flaunt his wealth, Henry Fonda's careful planning and thoughtful investments built a strong legacy. His life's work and choices ensured that his family remained secure, his passions continued to be appreciated, and even his home state felt the lasting impact of his success. In the end, the fortune he left behind reflected the same careful thought and quiet strength that defined him throughout his remarkable life. Henry Fonda's legacy. Henry Fonda left behind a legacy that feels strong even today. He spent many years of his life bringing characters to the screen in a way that felt real and close to people's hearts. His work reached so many different people, and over time he became known not only for his serious roles, but also for the way he carried himself both on and off the screen. He had a quiet strength in his acting, and this made his characters believable, no matter the story. He was all about making sure the audience could truly feel what his character was going through. Throughout his long career, Henry Fonda took part in a great number of films that are still remembered today. He had a way of choosing stories that had meaning, stories that spoke about justice, family, or the fight between right and wrong. These films touched people because they reflected real struggles in life. He often played the quiet hero, the man who stood strong even when things around him were falling apart. People saw him as someone they could trust, someone who understood the weight of responsibility and never turned away from it. His legacy is not only in the roles he played, but also in the impact he had on other actors. Many younger actors watched him closely and learned from his simple yet powerful style. He proved that an actor did not need to overact to leave a mark. Instead, he showed that holding back and letting small emotions show through could sometimes be even more moving. His way of working quietly but with full dedication inspired many who came after him. He cared deeply about every role he accepted and gave it his full attention, no matter how big or small the part. Even beyond the screen, Henry Fonda's name carries great respect. He was seen as a person who stayed true to himself and his values. People admired the way he handled his career, always focusing on the work itself rather than fame. He believed in the power of storytelling, and this belief guided him throughout his life. His films often dealt with tough subjects, but he never shied away from them. Instead, he took on roles that challenged both himself and the audience, giving them something to think about long after the credits rolled. Henry Fonda's legacy continues to grow as new generations discover his films. His work still feels alive because the stories he helped tell are timeless. They speak about human strength, kindness, and the courage to stand up for what is right. Through his steady and honest performances, he left behind not just a body of work, but a lasting example of what it means to be a true actor. His place in film history remains strong, and his memory lives on through the stories he helped bring to life. What are your thoughts on the extraordinary life lived by Henry Fonda and his legendary career? Let us know your views in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.